The personal profile map is the beginning befriending experience. You begin to get to know your ventral, sympathetic, and dorsal states. So to begin this process, I'm going to invite you to find some colored markers. You can do this map in pen or pencil, but color's always more fun. And then take out your mapping template, and we're going to start in sympathetic, then we're going to move to dorsal, and we're going to end in ventral. So I'm going to lead you through this experience of beginning to get to know what happens for you in each of these states, how these states come alive. So as we think about sympathetic, you might consider what color, to me, represents this state of overwhelming, mobilizing, chaotic, disorganized energy. And we're going to be mapping your sympathetic survival energy. So think for a moment, what color might that be? And if you don't want to use color, you can just write in the margin what color you might think of. So with that color, or with noticing what color that is, I'm going to invite you to think of a time recently when you felt some of that sympathetic energy emerging. You went into a bit of a survival state. Fight, flight, anger, anxiety. Things felt overwhelming, too much. The last straw, chaotic, disorganized, can't think. And just bring enough of that into your mind, body, system to get a flavor of it. We don't want to go fully into that survival state. Just get a flavor of it. And as you begin to feel it come alive, begin to write in that middle part of your map what happens in your body when survival sympathetic energy emerges. What are some of the things you think? What are some of your feelings? What are some of the things you do? So you're looking for body sensations, thoughts, feelings, actions. And I'm going to invite you to take time to be with this sympathetic experience so that you can begin to really get the flavor of it and put this on your map. You're documenting what your nervous system is telling you about this state. And as with all of the states we're doing, I'm going to ask you not to edit what you're hearing, but simply write it on your map. But you're getting this information for a reason. Your nervous system wants you to know this. So again, I'm going to invite you to pause this and spend some time exploring what do you think, feel, do, and what happens in your body when you're in this sympathetic survival state. So now, before we end our sympathetic exploration, think about what happens for you around sleep when you're in this sympathetic state, and what happens to your relationship with food, and what happens to any use of substances or compulsive behaviors here in sympathetic. And then finally, we're going to fill out 2 sentences that are on your map. The world is and I am. So from this place of sympathetic, chaotic, disorganized, overwhelming survival energy, the world is and I am. So we're going to move next to dorsal. And before we do that, let's just anchor for a moment in ventral again. Let's bring a breath or a sigh, or maybe you connect to me through my face and my voice and my words, and feel a bit of regulation return. Because even as we're simply mapping these states, they can come alive in our system and we can really feel the pull of survival energy. So from this place of feeling a bit more regulation, we're going to dive down into dorsal. And dorsal, remember, is the place of disconnection, collapse, disappearing in some way. And as we get ready to map dorsal, think for a moment, what color would you use for this state? And you can either pull that color to actually create your map, or just mark the color in the margin of dorsal. What color? And as we begin to explore dorsal, we're just going to dip a toe into the energy of dorsal. We don't want to go too far into dorsal because it's very easily able to take us into this place of deep disconnection. So just dip a toe. So think of a time recently when you felt some of that energy of disconnect, collapse. Just enough energy to go through the motions, but not enough energy to really be present or care. Some flavor of not really being here. And as you begin to feel that in your mind and body system, begin to write in this bottom third of your map, what happens here? How does your body let you know that you've entered into this dorsal place of disconnect, disappearing? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are your actions here? And again, I'm going to invite you to pause and take time to let this experience emerge for you, remembering just to dip a toe, right? And remembering, right, whatever your nervous system is telling you in this bottom third. And if it feels like it's getting too much or begins to overwhelm you, come back, and we'll continue on. So now that you've begun to befriend your dorsal survival experience, let's think what happens here to your sleep. What changes when you come to dorsal, to your sleep patterns, to your relationship with food, and to your use of substances or behaviors? And then we want to answer those two questions here from dorsal. The world is, and I am. So now we're going to end in ventral. We're going to come all the way up to ventral. We're going to bring some energy back into our system because dorsal is this place of no energy or little energy. So we're going to travel through sympathetic. So through that place on your map, climb back up the ladder on your map, bring some of that mobilizing sympathetic energy in, but not the survival energy, just some energy, feel it coming in, and come all the way up to the top of your map in ventral. We're going to anchor here in regulation, in connection, in safety. And again, before we begin, what color would you use to map your ventral state? A state of well-being. And you can either use that color to create the top third of your map or just mark in the margin. So now with your color, let's bring some ventral energy alive in your mind-body system. So think of a time recently when you felt some of that feeling of, oh, I'm organized enough, safe enough. I'm okay enough to move through the world safely. Right? Ventral's not a place necessarily of feeling everything is wonderful or joyful or calm or blissful. Ventral is a place where we feel organized and safe enough to move through the world in an organized way, to meet the moment successfully. So remember a moment when you felt that energy, and instead of just dipping a toe like we did in dorsal, this time let it really fill you. Let you feel your system filling with this energy of ventral regulation. And when you feel filled, begin to write in the top third of your map what happens here. How does your body let you know you've entered into this place? What are your thoughts? What do you feel? What do you do here in ventral safety and connection? And if you struggle to find that moment because you may have been in a challenging period of time, ventral may be an unfamiliar place to you. I want to let you know that you only need a micro moment in order to map this. We don't need a long extended period of ventral to remember. A micro moment of feeling that energy of safety, energy of regulation is all you need. So remember a micro moment even. Let it fill you and map in the top third of your chart here. What happens in your body? What do you think? What do you feel? What do you do? And pause here and give yourself time to really feel into this place. And now let's look at sleep, food, and substances here. How does your sleep change here in ventral? What happens to your relationship with food here in this state of regulation? And what happens to your use of substances or behaviors here when you're feeling a sense of safety? And then finally, those two sentences from this place of regulation, of safety, of connection. The world is, and I am. So the last thing we're going to do with this map is we're going to fill in those 3 rectangles that run down the right-hand side of your map. Because although the states are biologically named ventral, sympathetic, and dorsal, for many of us, those aren't names, those aren't labels that really land in our system in a friendly, welcoming way. So what I'm going to invite you to do is, again, reconnect with those 3 states and listen to your nervous system and see what would your nervous system give you as a name for each of those states. And when you find those names, those words, write those in the rectangles on the right-hand side of your map. Now that you've completed your personal profile map, let's take a moment and review what you've discovered. Look at your 3 states. See what's interesting to you. What feels familiar? What's new information? What are you curious about? Reflect on what you've learned about these 3 states as you begin to befriend your nervous system. This map is a living document. You'll return to it over and over during the course of this training. When you feel something, when you have a new experience, you can go to your map and find yourself there. What state is holding you in that moment? Some things will change. Many things will stay the same. And as you return to your map over and over, you will deepen your connection. You will deepen the friendship you have with your nervous system.